Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Today I'm joined by a special guest, Big Papa Drock. How you doing, buddy?
My man, it's good to be back. You know, Hades, I don't know if you know this, but you were actually my first ever collab in Raid.
Exactly, oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, a little over a year ago. You were the first person that I ever collabed with. So thank you so much for having me back on the channel, man.
Not at all. It's always a blast. And I've got to say, I mean, it feels like a distant memory now, where we were doing like the free-to-play challenge and talking about, you know, you moving into a different way of playing this game and kind of getting excited about the game in a different style, which has been really cool. I was actually really enjoyed kind of watching that play through. But I guess we're almost like back to reality. And I mean, today we just want to talk about really the way we're feeling about changes that are happening within this game or not happening. You know, some of the stuff that's happened recently where the community are kind of pissed, honestly. I want to get your take on it and really then sort of talk it through. So firstly, you know, what's your stance? How are you feeling right now as a long-term Raid player?
You know, it's funny. When we did our last collab about a year ago, we were talking about mythical shard prices and how upsetting that was when they were first introduced, right?
Yeah.
Man, deja vu, buddy. I'm feeling pretty down. I just can't for the life of me understand what is going into the decisions that the developers are making in almost every aspect of Raid. I mean, you pick a part of the game and it just seems like they're doing things that are anti-player, anti-fun, and I'm honestly, I think I'm kind of worried, where like I feel like more than ever before that I've seen, people seem to be leaving, or at least that's what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in my own community.
Yeah. I've definitely seen like a couple of spells where clans are being like thinned out and players like genuinely are leaving because of a sense of frustration or almost like this sense of, I just don't like what's coming next. I saw it probably the first time round when we started to get things like empowerment in and blessings and like long-term players that played the game extremely actively. But like, look, I already invest a good amount in this game. I don't want to times that by 10 to stay active, I guess, or to stay relevant in things like plat arena pushes and stuff like that. So we kind of saw a wave of players leaving then, but that was really the top end of players, honestly. Whereas now it feels like it's more of a level which is filtering right the way through, either by frustration or just kind of like, look, I thought I'd achieved something. Now I'm being put back to square one. I mean, yeah, talk us through it from your perspective as someone who is, you know, a big live arena endgame player with, you know, with big resources, I guess, with good resources.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you make a really valid point here, where it's, you know, it's not just, I think, the high end of people that are frustrated with the changes. It's the entire player base. You know, when you look at what they've done with Hydra, and we know that this has been a balance problem for really realistically for over a year. Like, there has been a real balance issue in Hydra at the high end where one person on a team could absolutely decimate an entire clan because of Trunda. And it's just interesting to me that it took over a year to make any kind of changes to that. And the changes that they've made have been just, frankly, extremely damaging to pretty much every player in the game. So I think, you know, when I look at kind of how I felt about Raid, I've played a lot less live arena recently because I felt like they never effectively fixed polymorph. And even bringing stuff like pinpoint into the game was not the way to fix it, was actually just a way to try to get people to spend more money on energy farming, right? So it's kind of a culmination of just decision making where I just think, man, they really are just kind of speed running, pissing people off. I hate to say it because I want to be positive and I want to be excited about the future and I want to see quality of life changes come across consistently, but I just feel like the majority of people I talk to are more frustrated now than they've been in quite some time, and they don't see a real pathway towards the kind of improvements that we need. And I look at stuff like, where's the gear filter, right? Where's the ability to sort by, you know, pinpoint accessories or by blood shield accessories or whatever it is to make gear cleansing easier?
When they brought out the filtering for accessories, I was like, great. I've been wanting something where I could just be like, yeah, I just want to see this particular group of accessories. And then when it came out, I was like, oh, no, that's not what we wanted. Like,
No.
it's not what we wanted at all.
No, not even slightly.
It's like they're punching at the area that you think, yeah, this is going to make a good change, but they've just missed. Like, it's almost like the guys ducked and they've gone straight into the wall or something. Like, it's weird. And we were talking quickly before we started here. For me, what's frustrating is it's when it lands back to back to back. It's just kind of like they hit us with something, and you're like, okay, look. If something needs to be nerfed in the game, then I can accept a nerf, right? I can accept that there needs to be a change if there's basically fundamental stuff broken in their game. I get it. But then when it's like, okay, so we're going to do that, but then we're also going to do this, which is going to piss people off. And at the same time, we've planned 3 more things down the line in the next month, which are going to piss people off. And you're like, who's planning this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, you need to... Who hasn't heard of the shit sandwich? Like, give us something in the middle.
I need the cream filling, Hades. Where is the cream filling in my shit Oreo? It's crazy. But I think you're absolutely right, because and especially with this last Hydra change, which they tell us it was an oversight, it was a mistake that it wasn't announced, right? And I want to take them at their word. I want to believe, like, okay, yeah, someone messed up, but how do you mess up on that? That's a major change. That is a massive shift in philosophy for a game mode that a lot of people take enjoyment out of. It's never been my favorite, to be completely honest, but it's just like, oh man, I said to you before we started recording, it feels like L after L after L, where is the win? Where is the exciting thing to be announced? And I would argue, like, I don't even want new content right now. I just want quality of life fixes, the stuff that we have asked for years, the revamped marketplace, the better gear filtering, the even the approach they're taking to mythical souls, where you can't, for example, get them in the market. You have to only buy shards because they want to keep that kind of revenue up. It just feels like every decision is focused on taking or milking as much profit out of people as possible, instead of kind of making a concession of like, hey, you know what? We're still going to make money. We're still going to do well. And obviously it's a business. Totally understand that. But let's give something back to the player base. Let's give something to get them excited that is of real consequence.
Well, it's interesting because, obviously I've been putting out daily content near enough every day for the best part of 4 years now. Maybe it's more than 4 years, honestly. What used to happen, right? So there used to be trends of, if there were new champions, that would be a big view video. It's almost like, great, we want to see what's going on with that. And then if there was like a new piece of content coming out, again, that used to spike views because people are like, right, what's coming in this patch? Nowadays, it's almost reversed. It's like new champions is becoming white noise because there's just so many in the game. New content, okay, that still gets a certain level of interest, but generally they aim at very end game players, so the interest drops straight off. And actually the stuff that gets real engagement now is if they launch some reasonable quality of life changes, where it's just kind of like, and you're like, so I'd pride myself as someone who is pretty in touch with like community feedback. And I think that's how we've managed to build HH Gaming and make sure the tools are relevant, all that type of stuff. And I just don't know how you don't have somebody in the mix listening to feedback and realizing, oh, hold on a minute, this is actually what's trending well for our players in terms of engagement with them. And as I say, like you need to be mixing some of this stuff up. You need to make sure that some of this stuff comes in the mix. If I think about, a tone deaf recent change, how tone deaf do you get when you buff one of 2 champions in a month is basically the most pay to win part of the game they've ever launched?
It's flabbergasting. It's flabbergasting. And like, that's one of my major pet peeves, where how in the world is it acceptable to only address 2 champions in a game that has over 800? 2 champions once every 2 months, basically, is the rate at which they're doing. And I mean, granted, it's better than the extremely low bar that was set last year, where they did basically almost no champion buffs the entire year. But I've said from the very beginning, look, I get it. You want to introduce new champions. You want people to buy shards. That's the game model.
Fine.
Fine. But for the love of God, please put a team together. You have really talented people at the shop. We know this. Plarium obviously has some incredible people because we can see what they've created. But for the love of God, please put, a small team together to address 5 to 10 champions of all rarities
Yeah,
every
yeah.
single month, not just 2 legendaries, but let's get a couple epics in there.
Well,
God
and
knows there are
let's
so
just
many bad ones.
let's just take a second here because the changes generally are, you know, now we get a wholesale change, which is pretty rare. But normally it's like we're gonna lift this damage multiplier by 10%. We're gonna, make this chance to land this debuff instead of 50, it's now 75. We're not talking about really anything that takes any time. Okay,
Yes, exactly.
I'm in the mix with Godforge, right? We're building Godforge and we're designing characters. We literally design probably about 20 characters a week at the moment for our game. And I'm pretty much like the last filter of, does this feel like we're hitting the mark and does it have a level of balance? Just in sort of general ability terms. And then Saf will actually be the balance for, numbers and stuff. But ultimately, like I'm looking at it and just like eyeballing, do these skills feel good? Does it feel like it's the right rarity? All that type of stuff. We get 20 done it in a week from scratch, with a design team of basically 2 designers that are developing heroes as well as doing other stuff, right? Designing other things in the game. Now, Raid are already fully functioning as a squad. They've got big teams. It could even be like the intern coming in and just working on characters. It's like, look, we've got a great little project for you. Every month we want you to deliver minimum 10. Right, and it's like we want 2 rares, a couple of epics, 6 legendaries, or maybe 5 legendaries, 1 mythical. It's and that could literally just be tweaking numbers so that they feel like they've got a relevance in the game. And it might be actually of one of these we want you to go a bit more deep dive, make them a specialist in an area. Right, just one piece of content. Currently they're pretty crap. No one's really using them. We can see that in our analytics. We want you to work on this character and say, right, based on their feel, based on the type of champ we've got, make them a specialist. It's really not a difficult job. Like,
it's not. It's not. And that's, I think, the thing. That's I guess for me where the biggest disconnect is right now. And I don't know if it is for you, but I don't know the specific number of people that work at Plarium, you know what I mean, that work on Raid, but I would imagine it's a pretty decent sized team. What I cannot understand is why it takes so long to implement changes in this game. Like, I really don't get it. And I think you have a different perspective now from having worked on Godforge and from, putting this together. But I don't understand. And is it just we're not prioritizing this? We don't care. We're still making enough money where there's no incentive? Because the thing that I look at is at some point people will stop playing and they will stop spending. And it hasn't happened yet, right? Like, let's be transparent. It's people still spend, but I do feel at some point you will hit that breaking point. And maybe it's when something like Godforge comes out. And I know there's more competition now. I think King Arthur is another game that's
I've seen
launching.
It looks kind of cool. I might give it a try. Yeah.
So I just wonder at one point where they're going to hit the wall where they've pushed people past a breaking point and they have effectively put themselves into a place where there is no coming back. Because I feel like it's very tough. Once people make the decision that they're out, it's very tough to recapture their interest. And, look, transparently, as a content creator, I have a vested interest in this game doing well.
Same,
I love playing it. Obviously, I've spent an inordinate amount of money playing it. So congratulations, player. I mean, you definitely made your money off me, but at the same time, as a content creator, I cover it and I want people to be excited. And I was telling you this before the video, like, give me a win. Give me something to share with people where I am excited, where it's a positive video, where everyone in the community can say, oh yeah, that's a great change. We're not going to make people play live arena every day because we know how massively unpopular it is. But instead, we're going to really fast track allowing content creators to have friendly live arena matches so they can create content around that we think people would enjoy watching, and probably more people will decide to play our game.
Yeah. It's a weird one. Obviously, in a similar, well, probably even more so in terms of this vested interest. I've got a team of people at hellhades.com or HH Gaming that, basically the 90% of what they do is produce content for this game. And in fact, we had a session last week. 100% truth. We had a session last week where it's like, for the first time since hellhades.com existed, we've kind of started to see this plateau of engagement and viewership and that type of stuff. And I mean, it could be us. It could be like, our content has dropped a level, which if it is, hold our hands up. I don't think that's what it is, but it could be. But the other thing is, it's just like, well, there's less engagement in the community. So we're literally having meetings where we say, right, what do we do in terms of diversification? Like, what do we want to do with this platform? Bearing in mind, we pay 18 people a month a salary here and we're fortunate we're in a position we're able to do that, but that's not going to last forever if we kind of, if Raid goes on this downturn. So we're already kind of saying, well, how do we do that? Where should we, what other areas do we want to focus on? And I think, honestly, I think that's what the player base is starting to do with Raid as well. And I always do a deep dive once a month on kind of analytics around the game and around various other things. And I might do a video like that soon, actually, because I'm interested to see if it's having that effect, that follow-on effect now in terms of players are actually leaving. Because generally when I've done that, they've been able to either pull in like a new event or something, which just kind of like draws new players, or they drop a new bit of content with a lot of marketing behind it, and again they draw in new players. But I think they're hitting that's kind of like saturation point of balancing new players with old ones dropping out. And this is scary stuff, because if you get a wave of older players start to drop off, and there's a decent level of 3-year plus players in this game, if you start to lose a bunch of those, I actually fear for Raid in the short term.
I completely agree. And it's funny because I watch those videos whenever you put them out. I've always find them to be very educational as to what's going on. And it feels like this is the first time, and I guess we'll see what the data shows, but it really feels like this is the first time that a large number of people that spend are not being retained or not coming in here. And the thing is that, again, I understand it's a business. You want to make, like, as they said in their own document, they're in quote unquote profit mode, which, I get it. Like, you want to make money. It's a business. That's fine. But I just wonder if they couldn't just listen to some of the feedback that they are given from the community and content creators more consistently, and also maybe be a little more transparent as to why they make the decisions they make, and why they don't take the feedback that they decide not to act on. Okay, like there's been a content creator who for over 2 years has asked for a market. I'm not going to name him, but he's asked for the market to be redone. It's actually a running joke in content creator chat now, because to me it seems like such a simple thing to rework.
It's a no-brainer, right? So easy.
So easy, and yet there have been no resources put on it. And that's something I would, I'm in the software world myself. That's a couple days, maybe a week of development time at most for one developer. It's really not a heavy lift. So why hasn't it been done? Why are we not prioritizing making the game more enjoyable for our existing player base, while still trying to capture new people? But to your point,
but it does feel like when they've done it and so we've had these few sessions where the developers actually talk to a few of the content creators, and and so when they've done it, they've missed the mark. They've misinterpreted what's required, right? So Token Trader, great example. Like, I was talking about this for a long time, and they took it on as feedback during one of those sessions, but totally missed the mark with what they've landed with. The quality of life changes in the tavern missed the mark again. It's still super slow to do any type of upgrading, and specifically to do upgrading that you need to do for things like champion training tournaments. It's zero improvement on that. We already spoke about the kind of like filtering for stuff like artifacts. It's like they've heard. It's almost like some sort of Chinese whispers has gone on. Like, oh, we've heard this idea, and then they tell it to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy. And in the end, they're like, oh, I get it. So you just want to be able to see the different groups filtered out, and you're like, no, that wasn't it.
no. Let me search by gear level, for the love of God. We're 5 years in, and I can't search by something that hasn't been rolled, or I can't search by something that's been triple rolled or quad rolled, or I can't search by specifically only this type of accessory. And I don't think they understand how impactful this is to people playing Raid daily. Like, I think everybody jokes about raids like having a second job, right? Because it
Yeah.
requires such an immense amount of time in game to progress, especially if you're not a large spender. But even if you are, there's still a ton of time in game. And they recently, gave feedback only to Supreme Club members, which we were allowed to share.
Right.
But that was also an interesting choice too, where it's like, guys, communicate everything to the entire player base. Let people know what you're doing, and also give us a real roadmap. Like, give us some time frames here or some ideas of stuff, or at least tell us why you're not reworking stuff or why you reworked it the way that you did. Because I completely agree with you. The token trader is still not great. Is it a small improvement, I guess, over what we had? Sure. Every 6 months, a new champion comes in a game that has over 800
Yeah.
champions. Yes. Okay, cool. Really big. Thank you for that, guys. It's just, I don't know. I hate to say this, but I feel like they're speed running, destroying the game. And maybe I'm being reactionary, and maybe I'm being, hyperbolic. But it really just feels different this time with how many decisions have been made from Live Arena to Hydra to, in my opinion, not fixing Arena correctly over the last year, not improving these kind of game modes. It just seems like over and over and over again, the decision making is leading to stuff that does not make the game actively better, but just frustrates the vast majority of the player base.
Yeah. I mean, they're talking about, their December, excuse me, their December drop is going to be like another big feature. Like,
Mm.
and we don't know what that is yet. We don't know if it's going to be like a faction war direction or whether it's going to be like a new clan boss. But they specifically said like new feature or massively new piece of content type of thing. So it is going to be something quite big. But I feel like if they don't do that alongside a bunch of other like fixes, quality of life improvements, settle the Hydra down to be a fun game mode again, like
Yeah.
they need to do a number of these things at the same time if they want to either attract people back or avoid the kind of like last nail in the coffin type of scenario where it's like, look, I can take 2 or 3 punches, but if you're gonna consistently just keep hammering at me, I can't keep taking it. Like I saw someone write on a Godforge video, I can't wait for this to come out because then I'll be allowed to stop playing Raid, that type of. And I'm like, it's a game. Like, if you are not enjoying the game, then damn, don't do something you don't enjoy. It's meant to be like your entertainment time. It's not a sentence. Like,
True.
But yeah, it's I don't know. It's this weird kind of love-hate relationship, I think, with something which has kind of like become part of your daily routine, part of your kind of like daily habits.
Yeah,
And,
it really wake up, log on to Raid, talk to your buddies. I mean, I feel like it becomes part of your routine, and then also the community is what keeps you invested because there's so many people that talk to one another. Funny enough, outside of Raid, because there really isn't any in-game tools to talk amongst one another consistently.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I don't know about you, but if hypothetically put me in charge of Plarium for one day, the number one thing I would do is I'd say, okay, all new content, pause it right now. Just pause it. We're going to spend 1 month where all we do is listen to player feedback and do our absolute best to try to improve as many areas of the game that are consistently cited as being problematic. A real tavern rework, a real market rework, reducing time spent in game to a reasonable level. We're going to look at all of it. We're going to spend 1 month, every bit of our incredible brain power in the Plarium, whatever it is. We're going to do that. That's what we're going to do. And I would much rather see that than see another large new feature come out that also, and this is the other thing that drives me crazy, where so many of these new features that come out seem to be half-baked on arrival. And Siege is a great example of this.
Siege is a good example, yeah.
Has incredible potential. If you've played any other gacha games in the space, there is so much fun about watching somebody's battle, in a team-based mode, or being able to share strategies or being able to communicate one another. And oh my lord, like talk about just
it's so close to being
close.
Great.
It could be incredible, but it's just not. It's not what it should have been. And also, again, here we are 3 months after its introduction, with no real large changes. There's no real reworking. And they've talked about doing some things, and they just obviously reduced the cost of repairing buildings, but they're still not delivering the stuff that is needed to
Yeah.
make the game mode exciting and you know, enjoyable for everyone in the player base, whether you're an arena player or not. So
Yeah, it was
ugh.
funny actually, because obviously I can't help but draw comparisons to stuff that we're designing in
Mhm.
Godforge. And
Yeah.
sometimes when I see features coming out, I'm like, oh no, they're doing a feature kind of similar to how we were thinking to do it. And I'm like, and it looks pretty good, but they've not quite nailed it. Because from my point of view, I'm like, hey, we've got a couple of things which we're bringing out, which we've kind of like got under the carpet at the moment, where we want it to feel like, cool, this is something we've not seen in the genre, or
Yeah.
this is easily the best version of this type of thing we've seen in this genre before. And yeah, I see other games coming out, I see raid improvements, and I'm like, oh no, I think they're literally doing what we're going to do. And it's like come before, obviously, we've launched anything about it. And that's like quite, by the way, it's quite stressful.
It's scary. It's a scary thing because you're trying to build a game and you're obviously investing a lot of money and time into creating something that people want to play.
Yeah, but with Siege, I was like, damn, this actually, when I was reading it, on paper, it's really fucking good, actually. Like,
Yeah.
You've got points where you've got these different bonuses that you can put in, which means that defense have then got this kind of like area of strength, which is cool. You've got kind of a whole stronghold to build up, so you've got longevity to the design. But there's just too many reasons that it's failing right now. And as you say, it's way too slow to pick up the pieces on this. You should be doing, if it's crap, honestly, like week by week, there should be small amendments until we get it to the place where it's good.
Yes.
Like it shouldn't be give us 6 months, we're going to talk through it. Like, no, small changes, check the balance, small changes, check the feedback. Yeah.
It's befuddling. It's because I really don't get why that isn't how they approach stuff. And you could say the same thing with Live Arena. They knew polymorph was a problem for over a year. They knew it was too strong. They did not choose to do a single thing to change it for over about 6 or 7 months after they announced they were going to change it. So that was the crazy thing. Like, hey, we're going to change it. 6 months went by before we saw any kind of change. And then, in my opinion, they got the change wrong. They didn't actually fix the core issue, which is, the strength of polymorph itself, not even necessarily the amount of times that it procs. In fact, they ended up buffing it while they meant to nerf it, because it procs more often when you have more characters that have it on. And it's just like, guys, content creators, community members have given you feedback. Like, we understand why this is in the game, because also like the introduction of mythicals and stuff like that have really changed how people approach arena because they ignore resistance. But it's truly I don't know. I just can't understand why they seem to launch a new piece of content that has immense potential, Live Arena, Siege, Curse City, whatever, and then they just walk away and they do only tiny things once every 6 months instead of actually spending the time to make that content genuinely appealing as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, just to sort of wrap up, I guess, like how has it affected your direct clan? Have you seen a number of players from your direct clan leave at this point, or is it people just kind of disgruntled? Or
we've definitely had some people leave. I think we've had people, and I'm one of the top clans that spends the most in the game. Just full transparency. But even myself, I found myself spending less, and I know I'm spending less because my offers have gotten worse. So they're no longer the high end offers. Like, I have even dialed back my own spending in kind of as a just response to this kind of stuff, where it's like, look, I enjoy the game, I create content on it, it's something that I've obviously loved and have been passionate about for a very long time, but I just feel like the stuff that we say is falling on deaf ears, and I want to see meaningful, reasonable responses and action to change stuff that we can all agree is a problem. And like, maybe the metrics say that people are spending at the same rate. Maybe that's why. That's the only conclusion I can draw, that why this stuff doesn't change. But certainly doesn't feel good in the interim.
It's funny actually, because I know that events like the Monster Hunter event was phenomenally successful for Plarium. And I don't, it might be too early to even have the metrics yet, but I think the Asgard event probably did the same thing in terms of, You know, people love that type of stuff. So it might really be this. It might be that it's slow trickling back, that these things are being found really frustrating by the player base, and people are leaving because they're having these kind of like spiky waves of lots of cash coming through the door.
Yeah.
And you know, from the powers that be, they'll be like, look, keep doing what you're doing, guys. Brilliant work, without, you know, understanding really the sentiment behind where the player base is. So yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I really think, as I said earlier, there's got to be something massive that comes in December alongside a bunch of fixes. Otherwise, you know, you kind of that, revolt time, especially when other good games are coming out, like, you know, King Arthur's. I'm like, damn, shall I just do some videos on King Arthur's? Normally I'm like,
I'm thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm thinking the exact same thing.
Just have a bit of a breather from this kind of like day to day, because it's also like, I know Ash put out a mental health video the other day.
Yeah,
and you know, you kind of get hit in different ways in all sorts of jobs, not just content creator, but in any job, you get these kind of like waves of ups and downs, right? Depending on if you're performing. You know, I was in sales before. That was a very up and down type of environment, and you're in sales now, actually. Yeah,
yeah, so, we both know that.
So, and that's real challenging. Like mentally, it's very challenging. It's the same sort of thing as a content creator. It's like I can only take so many waves of negative sentiment from a community before it starts to affect my mental, and then I'm like, I don't even know what to do videos on right now. I'm struggling to get, you know, that enthusiasm to do some of the type of content that I enjoy to do. And making this type of video, look, we want to voice our concerns, but this doesn't fill you with like that positive mental.
No,
I want to go type. Next week's coming. I want to, you know, put out some great content. You're kind of like, here we go again type of thing. So
it's a bummer too, because I can't remember if I said this earlier. I think I said it to you off camera. Like, nobody wants to create positive content more than content creators, believe it or not. Like, first off, that kind of content does better typically in terms of views and engagement. And also, to your point, it makes you more excited. You're stoked. Like, some cool thing is happening, and it's a hit, and it's a hit across the board. You know what I mean? It's just a guaranteed win. And that's the kind of stuff. Like, I'll give you an example. A guaranteed win. Although, again, you could make some arguments that they could have made it a little bit easier. But when they made Clan Boss something you could auto, like, oh man, yes, we've asked for this for years. Thank you. Now, you could argue that they should have made it something you could auto for everybody, regardless whether you won key. But even still, it was a major, major improvement and a pretty near universal win. Give us that, for the love of God, please. I want to make positive, happy videos where I'm talking about how, you know, I've never been more excited to play Raid than right now. Everything is changing, guys. But if I don't have the content to do that, I can't lie to my audience about how I feel, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. Look, I guess we could probably talk for hours on it, but
yeah, for sure.
Raid, please give us a win. Fill that sandwich with something else, please. don't give us the triple decker. Triple decker shit's not good, man.
Please.
Oh man. Well, look, Drock, thanks so much for coming on. I will make sure I put all of channel and stuff down below. Go and sub to my good man here. Any final words, dude, before we finish up?
No, man, just happy to get to chat, and I think more excited than ever for Godforge to release. So super stoked.
We're trying. Anyway, guys, look, have yourself a good rest of the day, and we will see you in the next one.